Hey friend, do you ever have days where you spend hours optimizing your workflow, researching techniques to improve your craft, organizing your desk, or downloading the perfect productivity app, but you never actually create anything? And let me ask you this. Do you ever feel like you're working hard but not actually making any progress on your creative projects? I remember when I first decided I wanted to take writing seriously, and I came up with this long checklist of things that I needed to do before I could begin. I wanted to take a few writing courses to really hone my craft. I spent hours trying to find the perfect writing software. Oh, and I had to perfect my morning routine and get to a space where I could do morning pages every day. And I am not a morning person, so that became very difficult for me. The truth is, I was scared and I was stalling because I don't have an MFA. I didn't study writing in undergrad or even in grad school. I felt like I had to earn the right to call myself a writer. So I signed up for a writing course, and to be fair, it was super helpful. But because I was juggling a 9 to 5 with all the other responsibilities that come with life, I didn't have the time to really dive into my writing the way I wanted to. So while I was learning, I was not reinforcing anything because I wasn't practicing. I was not writing, but I was checking things off of my to-do list, and I felt like I was making progress. And to be fair and give myself a little bit of grace, I was making progress because I was making steps and moving forward in a way I hadn't previously done, but I wasn't actually practicing the craft of writing. I wasn't actually diving into the meat of what I actually was meant to be doing. And in some ways, this writing course or feeling the need to get all of these skills and techniques, it was becoming another roadblock for me to actually start writing. And it was another, I guess, year or so from when I started taking writing courses and learning about writing before I actually started writing. So, in hindsight, if I had to do it all over again, I would just start writing from day one and let practice be my teacher. Because now that I have started writing, I'm still finding things that I want to learn and improve on, but I'm actually writing. And because I'm doing that, I can apply anything that I learned directly to what I'm currently doing. So today, I want to talk about the tendency for us to do everything else except for the actual creative work. And if you find yourself currently doing everything else but the creative work, I'm going to hold your hand through this conversation because I was once right where you are, and I completely get it. So let's hop into the discussion. Let's start by talking about performative productivity. And it's when we spend more time preparing to create than actually creating. It's productivity theater where we look and feel busy, but aren't actually moving the needle on our creative work. And here's how it usually shows up. You spend hours organizing your project in Notion instead of actually doing the work. Or you binge watch tutorials on YouTube, but never actually apply what you learn. It can also show up as buying a new tool or app, thinking it will unlock your creativity. But at the end of the day, you end up not using that tool or app and not actually doing the creative work. Lastly, it might show up as obsessing over your creative ideas and tweaking and refining your outlines over and over again, but not actually getting started. Now, don't get me wrong, planning and organization is helpful and needed, but when it becomes a way to avoid the work, that's when it turns into procrastination dressed up as productivity. So let me know if you have fallen into this trap, because next we're going to talk about how and why this happened. And like most habits, there's a reason behind this, and it's not because we're lazy. First, let's talk about the fear of failure. And let's be real, if you never start, you never fail. So we convince ourselves, I just need to get everything in place first, And it's safer that way, but it also keeps us stuck. And studies show that perfectionism often leads to what's called procrastination paralysis. And that's when the fear of not being good enough stops you from even trying. Next, let's talk about the illusion of progress. In checking tasks off of your to-do list, it feels good. Structuring your project, building an actual content calendar, organizing your files, it feels productive, but it doesn't always lead to actual creation. And I can't tell you how many hours I spent outlining my ideas and revising them and tweaking them, planning out my writing schedule and setting up Notion dashboards without even writing a single sentence. I would finish doing all of those things and feel so productive, like I got a lot of work done. But then when I went back and looked at the file or whatever I was working on, there was nothing there. I was really well organized, but outside of that, I didn't have much to show for it. And this is because when we check off tasks, even small ones, dopamine is released. So we feel productive, we feel like we've made progress, even when we have not done much creatively. That is how you fall into the trap, because you're getting these boosts of dopamine by checking off tasks and getting yourself organized. But because we live such busy lives, a lot of the time that we spend organizing eats up all of the time we actually have to create. So we get done and finished with organizing our project, and that's all the time we have for the day. So then we end up with all of our tasks checked off on our to-do list without having made any progress on our creative project. And if you are on social media, I'm sure you've seen the productivity influencers who have these aesthetically beautiful workspaces, and they have it all figured out. If you scroll through Instagram or TikTok, you'll see videos of people journaling in cozy lighting, sipping matcha, and ticking off perfectly designed to-do lists. It looks productive, it feels inspiring, but sometimes we end up chasing that image of productivity instead of doing the work itself. And then you find yourself adding things to your Amazon cart from someone's Amazon storefront and spending so much time setting up your workspace, buying a new light, buying a new candle, but you haven't actually done the work. So now that we know how it happens, let's talk about how to stop performing and start creating. First, set a creation first rule. Before you tweak a system, buy a new tool or something for your workspace, or watch another tutorial, create something, anything. If you're a writer, write one page. If you're a painter, sketch something. If you're a musician, hum a melody and record it. If you're a photographer, go out and take a few photos. Test out the lighting. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better if it's not perfect, because imperfection is where we learn, because it gives you the opportunity to grow and see where you could do better. Next, I invite you to use the 80-20 rule of creativity and aim to spend 80% of your creative time doing the work and 20% on organizing or planning. So if you only have 2 hours to spend, you should be dedicating at least 1 hour and 36 minutes of that time creating, and use the rest of the time to get yourself organized. So you could even set yourself a timer, and for the first 24 minutes of your 2 hours, plan and organize. But once that timer goes off, that means it's time for you to get to work. Lastly, I encourage you to make peace with imperfection. Creativity is messy. First drafts are supposed to be rough. Sketches aren't meant to be masterpieces. And nobody's first YouTube video looks polished. Trust me, go and watch my first YouTube video. And creatives like Maya Angelou and Neil Gaiman didn't wait for perfect conditions. They showed up, they created, and then they refined. But what's most important is they just got started, because once you have a piece of work, you have it, and now you can perfect it. Now you can focus in on the small, minute details. But if you don't have a draft, you can't perfect your draft. And it's better to create something that's imperfect than to never create at all. So here's the truth. The goal isn't to look productive, it's to be creative. And if you've been spending more time preparing than creating, you're not alone. I've been there. We all have. And one quote that really helps me when I start to get stuck in that trap again is this quote that says, "Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can." And when I look back to the beginning of my writing journey, I actually had all the tools that I needed. And so much of the knowledge that I was seeking externally, I already had within. I just needed to get started. But instead, I was creating all of these roadblocks in my head by thinking that I needed something in addition to what I already had in order to get started. But in reality, I should have just started where I was and started with what I had. And along the way, I would have learned more. And since I've started writing, that's exactly what's been happening. I'm not a perfect writer at this point. There's so much for me to learn. There's so much growth for me to have. But now that I'm doing the work, I can see where those opportunities for growth lie. And I can also see my strengths. And being able to see your strengths creatively, it kind of, at least for me, it motivates me and it keeps me going and moving forward. And the dopamine that you get from preparing, organizing, and performing productivity really does not compare to the dopamine that you get from finishing a first draft or editing a draft and making it better. Like, that to me is so much more fulfilling than having a perfect Notion dashboard. So I really do encourage you to just get started. And if you don't take anything else from this video, remember this: you already have everything you need. You just have to begin. So let me ask you, what's one project you've been planning but haven't actually started? Drop it in the comments and let's hold each other accountable. And in the spirit of accountability, I'll share with you one project I've been putting off for years. And I ask you and encourage you to hold me accountable. So I have this tattoo, and it's a Sankofa. It's an Adinkra symbol. And the idea that I have is to create a collage, like a stenciled painting type collage, using a stamp of the symbol. And I want to have maybe 8 to 16 different squares, and then put it all together to make one big painting. And each square I want to be completely different from the other. And I've had this idea in my mind for a really long time. I want the painting to go above my bed, and I haven't started because I'm not a painter. Like, the last time I painted anything was in 10th grade in high school. So I really don't know where to start, but I've been using that as an excuse to not get started. And it's an idea that keeps coming back to me, so I know I need to do it. But I have been creating all these roadblocks where I simply need to just buy the materials and get started. And it might not turn out perfect. It probably won't, because I'm not a painter, like I mentioned, so it probably won't turn out great the first time around. I might have to try it a few times before I feel like it's something I want to hang above my bed. But I'm sharing this with you so that you can hold me accountable. And please do share with me in the comments a project that you've been procrastinating on, and I will hold you accountable as well. So I'm going to leave you with this simple mantra: create more, plan less. And that's all I have for you today, but I will see you in the next video.